Well, I've got another job here from my mate for his Harley Davidson Sportster. It's a brake shaft, brake lever. No, not a brake lever, a brake rod I should say. I have done one of these before for him, and what he wants it extending by an inch. Now, apparently it's for to do with his brake pedal. At the moment it's fairly steep, or it's at an angle which is a bit awkward, he says, and he wants to be able to lower it down slightly, and it needs this to be an inch longer to do that, but it also needs to be adjusted. Now the last one I did, I cut the rod in half like this, chopped it in half and screwed it either end. One was left hand thread and one was right hand thread, and then I made an adjuster so that it could be adjusted in and out to get the correct position. You can't use an ordinary same thread on either side, because if you screw one end it'll just unscrew the other. You've got to have a left and a right, so it will actually pull the shaft together to get the adjustment, and that's what I plan to do. So I shall cut this in half, then I'll screw cut one end left hand and the other end right hand, and then we'll make in fact I'll make the nut first, because I need the nut to try for screwing onto the left hand portion, because I don't have any left hand nuts of anything. So what I'll do then, I'll just chop this in half, cut it in half. I'll screw cut one part left-handed thread and the other half right-handed thread. I haven't decided which left-hand form yet. It's either BSF or BSW, because them are the only left-hand taps I've got. So we'll just check that. But that's the way. And then I'll make a piece to fit, an extension piece, that'll be tapped left hand and right hand, so that it will be adjustable. So it'll bring the two halves together or apart. You can't just have threaded same end, same size, because as you screw one out or in, it'll just unscrew the other end. It will not do. You'll get no adjustment. So it has to be left and right hand thread. I need to decide now which tap to use, because I don't have any dies, left hand dies, so it has to be screw cut left hand. So I'll have to check and see what I've got now in the tap range. So this is 10 millimeter. Now I don't have a 10 millimeter left hand tap, metric especially, and the next nearest equivalent is an Imperial, which is 3/8, and I do have a 3/8 BSF, which that will do. That's ideal. BSF, it's a finer thread than the Whitworth, although Whitworth would be okay, but I prefer a finer thread, and that will do the job. As I say, I don't have any 10 millimeter left hand taps. Plenty of left hand, in fact a whole box full, and some dies, but these are the wrong size, so it's 3/8 to be. So next job, I shall chop this in half and get the ends machined. Well, this is the old-fashioned type of hacksaw frame. I've used this since my apprentice days, and I wouldn't use any other. These others with the big handle on the end grips, not for me. These are better, more controllable, a lot easier to use, and I wouldn't be without it. old-fashioned maybe, but definitely better than the other kind, in my opinion anyway. Well, the next job is to make the nuts, and one end will be tapped 3/8 BSF and the other will be tapped 3/8 BSF left hand. I'll machine this up, and then I shall screw cut the cut brake rod. The reason I'm doing this is because I'd rather have the left hand threaded there than I can try it on the shaft, because I'll be manually screw cutting the left hand thread. Now the next job is to drill and tap this adjusting nut. Do the first end. I'm going to do this left hand thread. So I need now to drill that. Just make sure everything's running true. Yep. We'll pop a centre in, although it's already centred. I shall just make sure that it is true. Feels strange actually. It could be something in there. That's better now with a bit of coolant. And now I shall just drill that we shall drill that 1 inch in depth. Now I've actually drilled that 3/4 of an inch, which I think should be more than enough. I was going to drill it 1 inch, but 3/4 is sufficient. Right, now I shall put the 21/64 drill in, which is tapping size 4 3/8 BSF. Now the way I'm going to tap this nut is to put the tap into the nut and then bring up the tailstock centre. And what I usually do then with this size of tap is to get a small spanner, or adjustable spanner on the tap flats, and as I turn the tap, I just put slight pressure on with the tailstock centre, and this method, it works quite well. I've done this for a long time now, and it's always been reliable. If it was a lot smaller tap, I'd be using a tap wrench. Now when you're tapping a left-hand thread, it always looks a bit odd, because you're going the opposite way to what you would normally do, and even after all these years it still looks odd to me, even when using a die. Well, that's the nut tapped a little way down. Now I'll just put it in the vise and finish tapping it. It'll make it easier, a lot easier just to put it in the vise and get the tap wrench on it. Well, as I'm tapping, as you can see, I keep easing it back a little bit, because if you don't do this, sometimes depending on the material you're tapping, it can bind. And I've had occasions over the past years where the tap has actually seized, even though I have been actually backing off as I've tapped down into the component. You really do need to keep backing off a little bit, especially with small diameter taps. I've just bottomed there now, and then just withdraw the tap, and that will do for that end. And what I shall do now is tap the right hand thread. Well, I'm using the right hand thread at the right hand tap now, and this is the taper tap I'm using, whereas on the previous one on the left hand I just had a plug tap, so I can go in a lot easier with this one, and then put it in the bench vise and eventually go down with a plug tap. Now I need to go down with a plug tap now, because this is the first tap. Excuse me. Whereas on the left hand one, I did have no start tap, the taper tap. It was just a plug tap. So now I need to just go down with a plug. And now we have the adjusting nut finished, or well, nearly finished I should say. It needs some taking off the OD, but that will do the job. And the next job is to screw cut the cut ends. Well, that's the nut made. It's screwed both ends, they tap both ends, both BSF, one left hand and one right hand. I've had to use BSF because that's the only suitable tap, left-handed tap, which I do have. The other one is a Whitworth, pretty standard Whitworth, which is fairly coarse. I don't want to use a coarse one. Really need this fine one. And it's 20 threads per inch, by the way, both sides. And the next job is to screw cut the shaft. Now this is the long piece. Now this will be screw cut conventional right hand, and the other part, the left hand part, will be that will be next. That's going to be screwed next. and the way I do my left hand threads is probably a little bit unconventional to some people. I do mine a reverse way. I do excuse me, I do it from the rear tool post. I screw cut from the rear tool post, reverse the speed, the rotation of the chuck, and this enables me then to screw cut from the tailstock end and then withdraw the tool in the conventional manner at the end of the cut. I suppose it is easier really to start screw cutting at the back end and then come out like you would normally. That normally entails a clearance groove, which I don't want to do. I don't like to put clearance grooves, especially on this brake shaft. Excuse me, because it tends to weaken, and I don't want to be weakening a brake shaft. So I'm just going to go straight in as normal. I'll come out as normal, I should say. It'll leave no groove, hopefully. So that's the next job.
Now I've had to make up a small holder to hold this piece I've cut off. The knuckle there is fouling the chuck jaws. I can't get the small knuckle joint into the spindle because my spindle's not big enough. So I've just made this setup. It's held in by a grub screw. It should be okay. It won't even go into my forge yard chuck. It even fouls there, so this is the only way I can do it. Now, the last time I did one of these shafts, I did not have to do this. It went in my spindle for some reason. It must have been removable. And it's some while back since I made one of these. Definitely the joint came apart, but this one doesn't. So I've had to make this up. And you can see there that it just won't go through the spindle. It should be okay. We'll see anyway. I'm going to cut the left-hand thread on this, and in retrospect, I don't know why I didn't just do it right-handed. I could have just done a rough, well, not rough, but I could have screw cut this right-handed and then just run a die down it instead of cutting it left-hand, and cut the other portion left-hand, which would have been a lot easier. But what I need to do now is just face down this front face where I've hacksawed it. It's a little bit rough, and what I'm going to do is just put a centre hole in it, and then I'm going to bring up my half centre,
Face off.
just lightly face down and tidy it up, and it'll make it easier anyway for when I screw cut it. Don't want an uneven face to start on. Now I'm just centre drilling, and then I can get the half centre in. I don't want to screw cut this without a centre. It's a bit tricky. It won't be rigid enough, especially with this setup. Now half centres are really handy items because you can put your centre into the centre hole and face down into the actual centre hole. And the half centre just allows that little bit of clearance for your tool to get to the centre. The centres I use are homemade. They're made out of old drills, and I've just ground away the flat there, so you get the small amount of clearance when you face down.
Now that's completely faced off.
Now the way I'm going to screw cut this left hand is probably a little bit unconventional to some people, but I've used this method for quite a few years now. And I put the tool on the opposite side and have the rotation of the chuck clockwise, and this way it enables me to cut the screw, the left-hand screw, in a conventional way and withdraw when we get to the end of the length of thread. Now I like to withdraw it and not put a groove. I don't want to put in a groove in this part because, as I say, it's part of a brake shaft, and if you've got grooves, it can tend to weaken the shaft. So I'd rather just pull out the tool when it gets to the end of the thread. Now, the trouble is with this chuck going the opposite way, and this is a threaded chuck. There's always a danger that the chuck can unscrew itself if you have a dig in. Now this chuck's tight anyway, and I've used this method, as I say, for quite a few years, and I've never ever had the chuck unscrew. Yeah, I suppose you could lock it down. You could put a grub screw down the back here, but I've never done that, and I've never had any trouble. So just be aware that if you do try this method, remember that if you do dig in, that there is a chance that the chuck can unscrew itself.